Hey, what's up? Today, I'm gonna show you 3 epic pumpkin desserts that you can make for the holidays, all of which are quite a bit easier than making a pumpkin pie from scratch. First up is pumpkin creme brulee. It's creamy and luxurious like pumpkin pie, but it's got crunchy caramel on top instead of crust, and it's super easy to make. First, I'll drop 600 grams of heavy cream into a saucepan, then I'll just heat that up over mellow heat because I don't want it to scorch. I'm heating the cream for this custard so that it cooks faster. Using cold cream in this recipe can add it up to 30 minutes of cook time. And after a quick 5 minutes, this cream is heated to about 150 F. So from here, I'm gonna set this cream aside, then grab a medium mixing bowl and 9 large eggs. Then I'll crack those eggs into Okay, I'm gonna crack 9 large eggs into a bowl so that I can separate the yolks from the whites. I like to do that with my hands as opposed to passing the yolk back and forth between eggshells because for me, it's easier and I think you're a lot less likely to accidentally split open the yolk and get it mixed back in with the whites. And once I've got 9 yolks in this bowl, I'm gonna add in 300 grams of pumpkin puree, 120 grams of sugar, 3 grams of pumpkin spice, 5 grams of vanilla extract. Then I'm gonna reach back to the stove, grab my cream, and then pour all of that into the bowl. Once everything's in the bowl, I'll grab a whisk and just stir until everything is homogeneous. Ooh, also add in 4 grams of salt. That's important, and I forgot about that. And once this custard is all whisked up until homogeneous, I'm gonna grab a fine mesh strainer and pour the whole thing through that. Since the pumpkin puree has some fiber in it, if you don't strain it off, the final custard experience can be a little bit grainy. Yeah, all that gunkiness is going to inhibit creme brulee silkiness. And once this custard is strained off, it should be smooth and creamy like this. Now it's time to bake it. For that, I'm gonna grab 6 ramekins that can hold somewhere between 7 and 8 ounces of liquid. I'll link to where you can get these ones down in the description. Next, I'll carefully pour this custard into the ramekins, filling them up to the inside lip. Then I'm gonna cover each one with a tight wrapping of plastic wrap. This wrap will trap steam, which will help the custard cook evenly and prevent a skin from forming in the oven. Next, I'm gonna poke this wrap with a cake tester or a toothpick to allow a little bit of venting so that the steam inside doesn't drip back into the custard and make it weird. From here, I'm gonna load this whole tray into a 215 F oven and bake for roughly 90 minutes. Cook time will vary depending on your oven because lower temperatures tend to be less accurate and more variable than high temps. And after about an hour and a half, I'm gonna check back on these custards to see if they're set. There's 2 ways to do this. The first being an instant read thermometer. I'm looking for an internal temp of 180 to 185 F. Any lower and the custard's gonna be too wet. The second move is to pull the custards out of the oven and just shake them. If it looks really jiggly, it's undercooked, and if it looks set like jello, then it's probably good to go. Now, after a couple hours of cool down in the fridge, these custards are cold, set, and ready to brulee. For that, I'll drop about 3 large pinches of sugar in the raw right on top. I find that this type of sugar caramelizes better than plain white sugar, which tends to soak right into the custard. To brulee this, I'm gonna grab a butane torch. Then I'm gonna hit this creme brulee from a distance of about 5 to 6 inches. If you go too close, the sugar is gonna burn super fast and it's gonna roast the custard underneath. That changes the texture and takes it from silky to hot and curdled, kind of like scrambled eggs. Also, if you're wondering, hey Bri, can I do this without a blowtorch? Well, in my original creme brulee video, I do lay out a strategy to use a broiler. That method works pretty well, but it can also roast the custard if you don't pay really close attention. And once the sugar has been deeply caramelized, it's time to crack it open. Man, putting sugar glass on top of a rich fall-themed custard is a real thrill. This creme brulee hits similar to pumpkin pie, but it's denser with flavor and has the texture of, well, custard. Yeah, it's just smooth for days. Man. This creme brulee recipe takes about 15 minutes of active work, it's super light on dishes, and it provides a novel way to eat something pumpkin spiced around the holidays. I hope you try it. Next up is a homely dessert that my mother-in-law brings to our house every Thanksgiving. She calls it pumpkin crunch, and I think she got it out of a magazine or from a nice gal at church. Like most mom food, this dish makes no sense from a technical perspective, but it tastes amazing. To make it into a medium bowl, I'll add 400 grams of pumpkin puree, then 450 grams of sweetened condensed milk, 15 grams of vanilla extract, 3 large eggs, 2 grams of cinnamon, 2 grams of pumped spice, 3 grams of salt, and 30 grams of melted butter. Next, I'll just jump in with a whisk and stir until the eggs are broken down and everything is well combined. Next, let's bust out the dry ingredients. For that, I'll combine 200 grams of all-purpose flour, 200 grams of sugar, 10 grams of baking powder, and 3 grams of salt. Then I'll just stir that until everything's combined. For extra mom points, sub this dry mix for a box of vanilla cake mix. That's actually what the original recipe calls for, and it works, but I've opted to mix up my own dry because boxed cake mix can vary pretty widely, and most of them are way too sweet. Next, I'll drop 2 sticks or 230 grams of butter into a pan and melt it. You guys are not gonna believe how this melted butter makes it into this dish. Next, I'll pour my pumpkin pie base into a 9x13 casserole dish. Then I'll grab my cake mix and just sprinkle it right on top. You heard that right. Put raw flour on top of the pumpkin stuff. No mixing or anything like that, just flour on top. And once there's a solid layer of raw flour dusted on top of the pie base, I'm gonna snatch the melted butter from the stove along with a spoon and then just scoop that on top of the raw flour. This part is where my chef brain goes a little bit insane. In a million years of trying to make a delicious pumpkin dessert, I would have never thought to put butter on top of raw flour. Look at this. I mean, the butter is just pooling on top. This is stupid. Once the butter's down, I'm gonna spread that out so that it's sitting in an even layer on top of the raw flour. And at this point, try not to mix the layers together because this dish really sings when it has distinct textural layers. Speaking of texture, I'm gonna finish building this pumpkin crunch by laying on 125 grams of chopped pecans. If somehow 125 grams isn't enough to fully cover the top, feel free to go up to 150 or even 175. I want this top to be blanketed in a thin layer of crunchy nuts from edge to edge. And that looks perfect. I mean, it looks weird, but it looks like it's supposed to. Next, I'll throw this casserole dish into a preheated 350 oven to bake for 60 minutes while I thank Trade Coffee for sponsoring this video. For the last 3 years, I've been getting monthly deliveries of Trade Coffee. I love it because the coffee tastes great, but also because I'm a decaf drinker and Trade has the best selection of high quality decaf coffees that I'm aware of. This Thanksgiving though, I'm gonna be hosting my family of caffeine drinkers. So to dazzle them, I picked up one of Trade's tasting sets. This one's from Alma Coffee and it includes a bunch of roast levels and different processing methods. I thought it'd be fun to let people choose what kind of coffee experience they want to have. This is actually one of Trade's curated gift boxes, and it would also make a really great gift for a teacher, a male person, a mother-in-law, a friend, or anyone you know who loves great coffee. Of course, you could always give them the classic Trade Coffee subscription that I have. That allows the person you're giving coffee to get personalized matches based on what they like. So to pick up some coffee for your holidays or to give the gift of really great coffee to a friend, head to drinktrade.com/Brian. Trade's coffee comes from local roasters across the country. It's roasted to order and shipped directly to your house. Again, that's drinktrade.com/Brian, and the link is in the description. And after a 60-minute bake, it's time to pull this crunch out of the oven. You guys, oh my gosh, this thing smells so freaking sick. 2 hours later, once this thing has cooled completely, I'm gonna cut a square out of the top and then scoop it out to end the suspense of what exactly this thing turns into. It looks kind of like a lemon bar, but you know, it's pumpkin pie flavor. Somehow that butter combined with the raw flour and became a hybrid cookie cake thing. It's weird, but somehow it works perfectly. Wow. This thing makes no sense, but it's so good. It's nostalgic, it's fun, and it tastes so good. Thanks to Trish, Lauren's mom, for turning me onto the virtues of pumpkin crunch and for showing me a totally new technique in the process. Love you, Trish. Okay, finally, I'm gonna show you guys how to make a burnt Basque pumpkin cheesecake. It's way easier than crusted cheesecake, and it delivers a substantial amount of fall vibes. First, I'll combine 375 grams of cream cheese with 225 grams of goat's cheese. The goat helps this cheesecake maintain its twangy cheese flavor. In my testing, adding in pumpkin puree muted the cream cheese flavor too much, so I needed something with a little bit of punch to balance out the puree's creaminess. Now the paddle attachment goes on, and I'll spin up the two cheeses until they're evenly combined and smooth, or for about 1 minute. Next, I'll add in 400 grams of pumpkin puree, then 350 grams of brown sugar. In my opinion, the darker flavor of brown sugar helps solidify this as a fall pie. Next, I'll spin this with the paddle attachment to get everything combined. Then I'll turn this up to medium-high to break down any large globules of cheese. Since the pumpkin puree is kind of wet, you gotta work it a little bit harder. After 2 minutes of spinning, I'll stop the mixer, then scrape down the sides. This is crucial because the cheeses grip the sides of the bowl for dear life. If you don't scrape down at least least twice, you're gonna have pockets of unmixed cream cheese in your final cake. Now, one more quick spin to get everything smooth and well combined. And at this point, the batter should look almost like Jiffy peanut butter, but a little bit looser. Now, with the mixer spinning, I'm gonna grab 5 large eggs and drizzle them in one at a time. Once in, I'll let the egg get fully mixed into the batter, then I'll drop the next. From this point forward, don't mix this cheesecake batter on high speed. If you do, the eggs are gonna trap air into the mixture and your cheesecake is gonna puff really high in the oven, then collapse in a weird way after the bake. Okay, once the eggs are mixed in gently, I'm gonna grab 500 grams of heavy cream, then stream that in slowly. Again, mixing no higher than medium speed here. I'll give this cream a few seconds to get lazily mixed in, then I'll add in 5 grams of pumpkin spice, 7 grams of salt, and 50 grams of all-purpose flour, sifted into the bowl through a fine mesh strainer. Sifting helps us avoid any lumpiness that you might get from mixing dry flour into wet cheese like we are here. Also, this all-purpose flour can be easily subbed for a cup gluten-free flour if you want to make your cheesecake Lauren friendly. Okay, the paddle attachment goes back on, then I'll give this cheesecake 1 more minute of mix time. During that minute, make sure to scrape the sides at least once just to make sure that all of the cream cheese is intermixed. And once the batter is smooth and well combined, I'm gonna grab a 9-inch springform pan and spray it with a generous dose of pan spray, or hit it with olive oil. Then I'll drop in a cylinder of parchment paper around the outside, then a 9-inch round of paper into the bottom. For more detail on how to cut this paper, see my original Basque cheesecake video. Without the paper liner, the cheesecake gets mucho stuck to the pan. Okay, a little bit more pan spray, this time directly onto the parchment paper. Then the cheesecake batter goes into the pan, and then that pan goes into a 475F oven to bake for 40 minutes. 40 minutes later, the house smells of roasty pumpkin spice, so it's time to pull this thing out. At this point, the cheesecake should be very, very dark brown. Like, it's called burnt cheesecake for a reason. And the middle here should have just a touch of jiggle when you shake the pan. If yours is wetter looking, throw it back in, because you definitely want to lean towards slightly more cooked with this cheesecake than less. You guys, this cheesecake gives you the best parts of both of the desserts in its name. You get the warm, sweet flavor of the spiced pumpkin, plus the twangy brightness and intense caramelized flavors of the Basque cheesecake. Texturally, this thing is smooth. The rich, creamy cheeses paired with the smooth pumpkin creates a velvety texture that's very addicting and satisfying. All 3 of these desserts deliver the fall nostalgia that we all seek, but with less effort than making a pie from scratch. I really hope you guys try one of these recipes sometime soon. As always, they're listed down in the description, along with the volumetric versions. If you guys want to watch another one of my videos, then please check out this one linked on the screen. I'll see you there.